This is WCN, the Whole Care Network. You talk, we listen. Content presented on the following podcast is for information purposes only. Views and opinions expressed during this podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent views of the Whole Care Network. Always consult your physician for medical and fitness advice, and always consult your attorney for legal advice. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.
Have you ever met anybody that has caregiving on their bucket list of things to do in life?
Beyond caregiving, how do we care?
We also have to care for ourselves.
How do we treat friends, family, strangers we meet?
Forget it.
How do we heal? The physical, social, financial, spiritual.
Hello.
By creating healing ties. Tying it all together like a bow tie. With your host, Christopher McClellan, the bow tie guy.
Well, greetings, everyone. It is Christopher McClellan. You might know me as the Bowtie Guy for another episode of Healing Ties 2.0 featured on the Whole Care Network. As you know, we're in the middle. Well, we're not in the middle. We're towards the end of our 30 podcasts in 30 days. In fact, this is episode 28, if I can count the 30. Yeah, it's episode 28. So 29 and 30 is coming on Monday. But we are doing these episodes to support National Family Caregivers Month and to kind of tickle our listeners about our new Whole Care Network website, which will be debuting hopefully on December 1st. But you know about technology. You never know. But that's what we're gearing towards. But you can get a sneak preview of our new website by going to our old website, thewholecarenetwork.com. You'll see the link immediately on the front page. And then when you get to the new site, you'll meet a person by the name of Bo. That's because Bo ties things together on the Whole Care Network. I'm sure as soon as you get a look at Bo, you're going to get it 100%. And we're asking all of our listeners to provide us some feedback on the new site because we want to build a site that works for you. One of the special features on the new site is all the content will be searchable by our 4 pillars of care: our physical health, our spiritual health, our financial health, and our emotional health. All blogs, all podcasts, all videos will be categorized in one or all 4 of those pillars. So it's a kind of a unique way to sort out content, but we're going to give it a try and be on the lookout for some new exciting things happening with the Whole Care Network in 2021, including a live 24/7 streaming radio channel and our new YouTube channel, which will feature live Healing Ties shows. We're kind of going big time here on the Whole Care Network, but enough of me. I've been looking forward to meeting my guest today, Susanne White, who is the founder of the Caregiver Warrior. She was blessed with the opportunity to care for her parents and ventured out on a caregiving journey that would change her life. She blogs about this journey on her website, caregiverwarrior.com, and shares her experience, strengths, and hopes with others so that they too may survive caregiving with grace and empowerment. Susanne, welcome to Healing Ties. We finally get an opportunity to meet each other. This is terrific.
I know. It's so wonderful. It's Chris the Bowtie Guy. How are you?
We're doing great here in Florida. And I have to say I'm not sure where are you located?
I am in Brooklyn, New York.
Brooklyn, New York. My partner Richard was born in Raised in Brooklyn.
Oh,
Yeah.
he's a real Brooklyn. I'm a Jersey girl.
Oh, goodness.
So it's wonderful that he's a real Brooklynite.
He was a real Brooklyn. So if you haven't had a chance to read our story or see the video, he still, even into his 82nd year, he still had his Brooklyn accent. But
oh, that's great. He deserves that Brooklyn accent. If you have it, you deserve it. I think I have a little bit of it too.
yeah, just a little bit. But this makes it even more special. But we've been following each other for a long time on social media.
Years.
We're aware of each other's work. I've admired you from afar, and now I get the opportunity to talk with you. I know a little bit about you and your work. I love the warrior tag, but let our listeners know a little bit about you and why you're doing what you're doing. And we're going to get into a little bit of chat about the caregiver warrior.
Excellent. As you know, I love to hear myself talk. So I just said, I love this opportunity. Oh, it's so funny. And I love that you love the warrior tag that I put to caregiving, because I just believe that, as caregivers all know, we are fighting every day for our loved ones, and I look at the battlefields as healthcare and medical crisis and medications and emotional states. And I just think that warriors are kind of born with this chip to take care of others and serve others, and caregivers most certainly are warriors. So that's why I really kind of support caregivers and their trials and how they meet their challenges of everyday life.
And I think that's one of the reasons why we all connect with one another, even though we may not know each other personally per se. We understand the stories and the experiences, which brings us to an immediate connection.
Absolutely. I mean, we're all so different. We're all so unique, but we all are on the same journey. I feel like there's this big road that we walk down, and I think it's wonderful when we can connect with each other and hear each other's stories, because that's where the empowerment is and the grace. I mean, it's that we can share with each other and not feel alone. I know that, so often I was fortunate in that I knew at some point during my caregiving journey with my parents that I had to take care of myself, and I always wanted to ride horses. So angels spoke to me, and I found this barn right near my parents' house, and I would go every Sunday morning, no matter what. And it ended up being, we were all taking care of someone. Everybody I rode with for that hour on Sunday, we were all caregivers. And if I heard once, I heard it 14 times. They don't tell you about this. They don't tell you this, and I mean, and that's what caused me to say to myself, if at some point I have to share what I'm learning and the mistakes I'm making with other people, so that caregivers can get some relief, because it's very confusing. Even though it's kind of all the same journey, it's very, very different challenges all the time.
Exactly, because everybody's lives are different, but caregiving, and I know this is kind of repetitive for my listeners, but caregiving happens because of one or two things: an unfortunate accident or an untimely diagnosis, and suddenly you're thrust into this role. And the role plays out differently for everybody, but there's a lot of similarities that take place as well.
Absolutely. I mean, and talk about being thrown into it. My parents, my dad was a World War II bombardier pilot, very stoic guy. He was a real hero. And my mom was this little sort of Irish Catholic fireball. And she began to have the beginning signs of dementia, but they hid it from us. As a team, they worked together, to kind of hide it. And I understand that now in hindsight. I understand that, and that's kind of another conversation. And we would all spend the holidays in Florida at my sister's house. And we would all, because my dad and mom and I were all on the East Coast, and we would all fly to Florida, and we would fly separately. And my sister called me one holiday season and said they had to take Daddy off the plane. He was so sick, they took him off in a wheelchair. And we were like, what? I mean, this is a guy who flew airplane. I mean, So, and they were hiding it. And because he got sick, and he basically had caregiver burnout. I mean, he had other heart issues, but he basically, it was in the middle of caregiver burnout. And then I was able to say, hey, Pop, do you want help? And he said, yes, so quickly. I was like, there we go. And then I was off and running, never expecting to do that. Because in your mind, your loved ones are always going to be okay.
Right. They always get better.
Everybody gets better.
They
we can always fix everything. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So I was one of those sort of like Friday I was okay, Saturday I was a caregiver. So, and I think that's a very important thing to talk about because, of course, with my type A personality and my control freak, as a control freak, I was going to do it all. I was going to do it all by myself, and I was going to fix everything right away.
Oh, so you've got one of those caregiving capes that can do everything.
Oh, yeah.
You just snap that cape and then everything happens.
And I took that cape and then I flew into a wall. Yeah.
And you flew into a wall.
And that's another.
Yeah, and that's something that everybody, every caregiver experiences.
Yeah.
I know we're just talking for the first time, but another one of my pet phrases has been, asking for help is not a sign of weakness; it's a sign of strength. But asking for that help first time is very, very hard.
It's extraordinarily hard, and it's a finesse. You have to really learn how to ask for help for so many of us.
Right.
It takes a village. Caregiving takes a village, period. I mean, there's no exceptions to that rule. I think that's one of the things that we all have in common. But for someone like me asking for help, I mean, it's not something that I plan, but I have a very difficult, my personality, I do everything I'm the go-getter. I'm the one that fixes everything. And it's very difficult for me to even ask for help. I didn't even know how to do it, really.
Yeah, it is a skill that you have to learn over time. And part of that skill is realizing that it's okay. It doesn't mean that you're not the best caregiver. It just means that you're not the only caregiver.
Oh, I love that. That is so brilliant, because there is this thing that happens for us where if we can't do it by ourselves and we can't do it all and we can't fix everything, that means that we are a bad caregiver. I mean, there's this crazy thing that we make up in our minds, this bad dialogue, and it's just simply not true. It's just we're not the only caregiver, and we deserve a break today.
I like that. We deserve a break today. I've heard that somewhere, but
yeah,
we do deserve a break today. And one of the things that you're doing so much tremendous work, but there's 7 things that I want to talk to you about today.
Sure.
That you really hit right on the nail, put the nail on the head with your ebook, the 7 fail-safe tips for caregivers.
Oh,
and
thank you.
Like number 1, let yourself adjust to the caregiving role. I mean, it happens suddenly. You're not expected to know everything the first day. There is an adjustment.
There's such a big adjustment. And like I said, I ran into it thinking I could do it all myself and do it all at once. And you need to breathe. Everybody needs to breathe. My parents needed to breathe around me jumping in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not just the caregiver, but those that we care for. We all need a period to sort of adjust, to slow down. Yes, I've accepted this responsibility. Now let me just see the lay of the land. I don't have to do everything at once,
And it kind of goes in line with some of the other things that you've written about, self-awareness. When you have that self-awareness of what's transpiring in front of you, then adjusting to your role can be a little bit easier. I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight, because it doesn't, but that's why we do these podcasts and we do these blogs and we share our experiences, because we hope that if it can just connect with one caregiver that's coming after us, then we know that we're doing our job.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the goal, one caregiver at a time. And that self-awareness is, for me, that's the foundation you build the caregiving house on, is self-awareness. I mean, if I had to learn a lot of things about myself, not only about my parents and their needs and their health, but I had to learn a lot about me, and be self-aware of what I was going through and what I was doing, so I could make the adjustments and make the entire process easier.
Yeah, because it's almost like having 2 relationships in one. You have that pre-established relationship in this case, with your parents, and then this caregiving relationship comes in, and it is a different relationship. It's a different set of responsibilities, and it's a different skill set as well, trying to separate the two when it's next to impossible to do that.
It really is. And that's a big pillar of my self-awareness, because my mom and I did not get along. I mean, we were very similar, which is part of my self-awareness.
Very good.
Very, very similar. And, there was just a lot of history there. And my mom had dementia, so she couldn't change. I couldn't ask her to change. So if our relationship was going to heal or get better, I had to change. And the only way to make that change is the self-awareness, to really say to myself, like, why am I getting so annoyed now? Or why am I so scared now? What's really going on for me? And how can I be aware of that and kind of work on that on my end so that my behavior would change, so then the relationship with my mom would change.
And that leads directly into your second tip, which is to take care of yourself. The caregivers are notorious for avoiding their own self-care. And actually, self-care is job number one for every caregiver.
And why is that? It's some of the most selfless people in the world who will turn themselves inside out to care for others, completely ignore themselves. So, I mean, it's a strange thing that most of us, 98% of caregivers have. Yeah, if I get sick, who's going to take care of them? Mm-hmm. I mean, I've got to take care of myself. And I love the emotionally, spiritually, financially, physically. I mean,
they all fall apart. They all fall apart because
absolutely
your attention is to somebody else, and it's not to yourself, and it's not selfish. It's just something that you have to adjust to.
Right. It's dangerous. Yeah. It's dangerous if you don't take care of yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, it can really be dangerous.
Yeah. And we've already touched on your third tip, asking for help. So we've got that covered, and we both know that it's a sign of strength when you ask for help, but it's not easy.
Absolutely.
But you hit on your fourth tip, compassionate. I'm a strong believer that there's no greater honor that can be bestowed on another person than the care, being trusted with somebody else's care, especially at end of life. But that doesn't mean it's not have peaks and valleys.
Yeah, it's a struggle. It's and depending on what your relationship is and how tired you are, there's a big soup of emotion, especially at end of life. And I think compassion and empathy, I think the two of them, although different, they're very similar. And I think that for me, there was a big light bulb that went off for me when I saw my mom one day. We had a big calendar in front of the refrigerator that she could see all her doctor's appointments, and I'm going to start to cry, but I saw the poor little thing like pointing to a square on like one date, and I could just tell she couldn't get it. She had no clue what was written there. She couldn't and she just had this look on her face, and it was heartbreaking. My heart broke, but it just opened my heart to have such extraordinary empathy and compassion for her. It changed the whole game for me right then and there. Not that I wasn't compassionate or empathetic before, because I think I'm a very kind person, but it just made me see that she was in this world and she was so frightened. And, no matter what she did or what she said, I had to be patient and loving and kind and soft.
One of the lessons I learned in the midst of taking care of Richard, I learned so much from him. I miss him quite a bit, even after 6 years. But he said to me one day, it was after an argument, and actually this argument was just 6 weeks before he died. He said, Chris, some days it's the disease talking, not me.
Brilliant.
And it stopped me in my tracks, because he had, on his own, decided he didn't want to take his pain medicine for a couple of days. Well, there's a story beyond that story as well. But after the disagreement or the heated discussion, we didn't talk for a couple of days. And then when we reconciled, that's, he just looked me in the eye and he said, some days it's the disease talking. And when you shared that story about your mom, it reminds me of what our roles are as an advocate. That we're not the ones taking the medicine. We're not the ones going to radiation. We're not the ones with the diagnosis. We're there as the co-pilot. And when we can see it from their shoes, like you so beautifully described with your mom, I'm about to cry on this, but it resonates. That's why these stories resonate with so many people, because they're in our shoes.
Mm-hmm. And it's quite amazing. I had my dearest friend who I grew up with. Basically, I was from 18 on. She had lupus, and talk about a strong brawler. But I said to her once during this whole caregiving thing, I said, I'd like to really talk to you as the person who's being cared for. And get your view. And she said, "Oh, I've got an earful for you." Like, whoa, Leanie. But, and she did. She which is why I loved her all my life. And I miss her, is that, she said, sometimes you just, there's this helicopter flying around you and you just need to breathe and be sick or you just need sometimes for everybody to back off you and just try to understand that it's a crappy day and we're in crappy moods, and that's okay, and it was good for me, it helped me, to hear her story as someone who's being cared for, but I love that sometimes it's the disease. I mean, that's brilliant.
He had wisdom beyond his, well, that's for a whole other. We're talking about you today.
Yes,
So your tip number 5, I'm going to change it just a little bit. I'm going to kind of do the reverse. Are you good at juggling?
Yes.
Yeah. So, but can you juggle and just do the task at hand?
Well, let's see. I can juggle before I do the task.
There you go. And you can pick after you juggle, you can decide which task is the most important. But
exactly.
But do the task at hand. I mean, it's so appropriate. But you got to figure out which one is. You
got to figure out which one. And sometimes when you can't figure out, just pick one.
Just pick
you know
one.
What I mean?
Yeah, and that you just got to pick it. You and do it, and then you move on to number 6. And then after you do that task, you realize, you know what, I've done enough already. It's okay. Those other juggles that I was trying to maneuver, if I didn't pick it the first today, I'm sure they're going to be there tomorrow, or there'll be something different.
Absolutely. It's like, there's not a race. I mean, do you know what I mean? I mean, obviously, if there's a critical situation, but I mean, who's putting the goal? I mean, who's writing our goals? I mean, it's like, you show up, showing up is like doing the task at hand, the first one. We show up, we do the best we can. It all gets done. There's no rule book. It
does get done.
Absolutely.
It gets done in the time that it's supposed to get done.
Right. Absolutely.
Then you talk about the caregiving blues. Expound on that a little bit for me, because I might have an anecdote, but I want to hear from you first.
Excellent. Oh, that would be wonderful. Because I think all of us, I am of the belief that we're all doing the best we can. We're showing up, most of us, doing the best we can. It may not work for other people around us, or, not everyone may agree with us, but the bottom line of it is we're all doing the best we can. Having said that, there's times that I just felt like I couldn't go on, or, I got depressed. I got really sad. I had pre-grief. Everything would kind of start to tumble a little bit, and I would find myself with the caregiver blues. And I think the most important thing I learned about it was that it's okay to get the caregiver blues. It's okay to get down. It's okay. And I think just acknowledging and being self-aware and saying, this is how I feel now.
It's okay. It's okay to own your feelings.
Yes.
And it's okay to share them with a like-minded person who gets it.
Yes. I think it's important to share them with a like-minded person.
Whatever your outlet is, whether it's blogging or writing or talking to a friend, whatever, you have to have an outlet. Absolutely.
It's, it's like, you don't want to stay in your own head because it's like being in a really bad neighborhood, like all alone.
That's right. And then then you lose your hair.
Yeah. Then you lose everything.
Or your hair changes from the top to your. But this is radio, so people can't see how my hair is shifted until they look at the profile. But no, my antidote to this is that, and I know you're going to get this. For me, it was blogging, progressed down the road into podcasting and other things. But, for me, the blogging was cathartic, especially after caregiving ends, because I can go back and I can relive the experience on the days that I need to do, or if I want to do. And then I come to the realization that the good days far outweighed the bad days. It's just that the bad days, when they came about, they were more intense. And when you're in the middle of it, you're thinking about the bad days. But I can guarantee to all our listeners out there, as I'm shifting my conversation to healing ties to life after caregiving and how do we heal, having that outlet to go back and look at what you've done and the grace-filled experience that you've had, even those difficult days aren't going to be as bad because you showed up, like you said.
Absolutely. I think it's so beautifully put, because I think until you just said that, I didn't really think, I get it right away, but I never thought of it that way. That when you're in the midst of it, sometimes the only things you can really see are the bad days, because it's so intense. It's, oh my God, it's just so intense. But the amazing thing, especially after it's finished, is that you can't really remember the bad day. You can, but it's those moments, the beautiful moments, like the hug that my dad gave me one day, told me how wonderful I was, or my mom saying to me, "Oh, you always took care of me and you always did everything," or the smile or the laugh. It's amazing to me that when I think of my mom now, and I'm telling you, my mom was tough and she could be so mean, I don't think of her that way. I can't even find a memory anymore. Right. I just think of her and all the good things she taught me and all the good things we had.
Exactly. They're prevalent.
Yeah, it's amazing. So I think that, it's a good thing to say to yourself in the midst of sort of these blues, is that, this too shall pass, and that this is temporary.
It's temporary.
It's temporary.
Caregiving is temporary. It could go for 10 years. It could go for 3 days. Yeah. It's temporary. And it's our duty instead to help the person entrusted with your care go through it. And that's why you're a caregiver warrior.
That's right. Exactly.
How do you like that?
I love that. Okay. I love that.
Okay.
Perfect
Suzanne, very good. So this seems like a perfect time for us to take our break. Now, Suzanne, doing this with all of our guests on our break, I'm 30 and 30 podcast. We want to know a fun fact about you that you may not have shared today so far, or I don't know about you, but I know our guests are going to want to know a fun fact about Susanne White. So put your thinking caps on.
Jokey.
Okay, so you're listening to Healing Ties on the Whole Care Network. We will be right back.
Tomorrow on Healing Ties 2.0.
I'm a problem solver. So in trying to find, how do I fix this? But there is no fixing.
There's no fix.
And in my quest of trying to find, well, what can I do? How do I do this better? What can I do in this situation? I would find all of these people. All of these people were out there, and everybody was in that same, oh my God, what do I do? That's when I found daughterhood in looking for resources. And then I saw that they had these circles, and I thought, oh, I'm not doing a support group. I've never done a support group. What's that?
Right.
Isn't that embarrassing? How do you do that? I don't want to talk out of school, right, Chris? Like, I'm not going to say anything.
Right.
You know,
I get it.
I can't say that.
Right.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Roseanne Corcoran, in-home caregiver, primary caregiver, sandwich generation caregiver, host of Daughterhood the podcast, and a Daughterhood circle leader. Join me tomorrow when I talk with Chris McClellan, my brother from another mother, about all things caregiving.
Join us tomorrow and every day in November for 30 shows in 30 days. Healing Ties 2.0. Available at thewholecarenetwork.com/healing ties and wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
Well, welcome back, everybody. I am continuing my delightful conversation with the caregiver warrior, Susanne White. Susanne, it's your time in the spotlight. We want to know.
It's my time in the spotlight.
We want to know. Well, if there could be a spotlight on radio, but I guess we'll figure it out one way or another. But
it's so funny.
yeah, this is we want to know that one fun fact about you that we're just kind of itching on the edge of our seat. So pray tell, what is it?
Well, it's very interesting because I would never normally tell this fun fact, but I just have a feeling you're going to appreciate this. When I was younger, I was a singer-songwriter and spent quite a few years in the music business.
Oh.
So there was a spotlight on me. Mm-hmm. And one of my most favorite memories is because I was a kid and I sang my way through college, and I would open up for all the acts in Philadelphia at a place called the Main Point. And we actually did a gig at Villanova, and the opening act was Bruce Springsteen. And he was young.
The boss.
And he was young and just starting out, and nobody came to see either of us. we didn't have any people because nobody knew any of us. So we sat and hung out all night and jammed, and then that was it.
Well, that is a terrific fun fact. You hung out with the boss.
I hung out with the boss. Yeah. Who knew then? I knew actually. I knew how wonderful I could see. But yeah, nobody came to see because we were just starting out, and who knew? We were just two kids, and there you go. That's a fun fact.
It's funny. I love his music, and when you see him, I've never met him, but you just know that he's a good guy.
Yeah.
There's just something about him.
Yes.
And then I get to talk to somebody like you, and I know that you're a good gal because of all the work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you. And so are you. All the work that you're doing. It's making it a safer place for caregivers. And I think the same kind of honor and celebratory work that we do as caregivers to make other caregivers feel safe. So thank you for your work.
Well, thank you. And, everything that I'm doing, my life after caregiving is dedicated to Richard Schiffer, my partner, and keeps me going. And it's, as I've learned from my friends, advocacy does heal us.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Yeah.
Truer words never spoken.
Well, thank you. And, Susanne, we just have a couple of minutes left. I have a strange sensation that we're going to be doing a few more of these because at least I sense that we've really connected here. This has been fun. But
we have.
Yeah, but please let our listeners know how they can get in touch with you and how they can receive your free ebook from your website.
Please have them come to caregiverwarrior.com. I'm blogging there and put down a lot of my thoughts and tips and mistakes I made. Come learn from me and my mistakes at caregiverwarrior.com. And you can also see me. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, all Caregiver Warrior. And I look forward to your feedback and any comments and anything I can help you with.
Well, Susanne, with the work that you're doing the stories that you're sharing. You are certainly someone who's creating healing ties all around us. I can't thank you enough for joining me today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. This has been a delight. And I'm very grateful that I did it after Thanksgiving, because now I have something else to be grateful for, which is you.
Oh, I appreciate that. Goodness gracious. St. Ignatius, thank you for that. Oh, gosh. Well, that does it for this episode of Healing Ties. As you know, I'm your host, Christopher McClellan. You might know me as the Bowtie Guy. I've created a life to love after caregiving ends by sharing stories and resources and being with awesome people like Susanne White. Healing Ties is produced in the posh downtown studios of Odd Bach Production in St. Louis, Missouri, and is a part of the Whole Care Network. Check out our soft launch of our new Whole Care Network website, where you get a chance to meet Bo. You're going to love Bo because he ties things together on the Whole Care Network. And be sure to subscribe to Healing Ties wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. We'll see you for another episode of Healing Ties, tomorrow, as we continue with our 30 podcast in 30 days, celebrating National Family Caregivers Month. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye for now.
Ciao.
This is WCN, the Whole Care Network. You talk, we listen.